Hello, welcome back. So, this week I want to talk to you about methods of delivery. I also want to go over the speech rubric and just discuss some of my expectations about grades for the semester now that we're going to be delivering and submitting actual speeches that are required for the course. So, I'm going to try and keep this as quick as possible, mainly because of time constraints, and my dog has been sleeping fairly well today, but it's getting to be about that time that he's going to want to play soon. So try to get through this as fast as possible. I also have the PowerPoint for this up on Moodle, so I'm not going to cover every slide. I'm just going to go over the gist of what I need to about methods of delivery. So you'll also notice, by the way, that I have the subtitles up here. I've never used these before. I'm just trying to be a little bit more ADA compliant. Please let me know if they work for you. I've noticed that they don't always pick up everything that I'm saying, so it's kind of a crapshoot, but we'll see if it works. So before I get into the actual methods of delivery, I just want to remind you of a few things about the learning outcomes for the course and what particularly pertains to the learning outcomes for the speeches that you're delivering. And these are some things to keep in mind as you deliver your speeches. So these are 4 of the 7 learning outcomes from the NCA, and we have them listed on our syllabus. They're just a little bit more wordy and specific. But I just want to go over these really quickly to let you know some expectations first and foremost. And that's essentially number 1, monitoring and presenting yourself is an outcome of the course. Remember that as you deliver your speeches, you are also delivering yourself to an audience. So you need to think about how you're presenting yourself on camera and what you want to say in that delivery. I made some remarks on a few of your speeches from the introduction, just about basic appearance and framing of the shot and some things that you're wearing. And I also mentioned this in the introduction speech. So please remember that when I grade your speeches, I am going to grade things like what you're wearing. If you're wearing graphic t-shirts that have, maybe not necessarily inappropriate things on them, but just not appropriate content, if you're wearing anything distracting, or you're just not looking professional for the speech, that is going to have some kind of impact on your grade, because again, you are trying to present yourself to an audience. So try for business casual here. I'm not expecting suits and dresses necessarily, but I am expecting you to wear something that's appropriate. No hats, nothing weird. Make sure that you're showered. Don't come home from the gym and hit record. So just keep those things in mind. Remember also that we are attempting to adapt our speeches to audiences. So for the first speech, it was appropriate to say things like, "Hey everyone, how's it going?" Great. You can still do that for the Mosaic speech as well, because that one is another speech that's kind of directed towards the classroom. But you shouldn't be opening all of your speeches the same way. You should remember that there are different audiences you're going to deliver your speeches to throughout the semester. So make sure that you are adapting the messages of those speeches and the content and the way that you deliver those messages in accordance with the audience. You should not, again, start and finish every speech with, "Hey everyone, how's it going? Had fun this week in class." And then the other 2 are more or less self-explanatory, but we are going to be creating and expressing ourselves through messages. So make sure that you are being expressive. Make sure that you're practicing and preparing not just what you're delivering, but how you will deliver it with your speech, with your gestures, your body language, your tone, your expressions and enthusiasm. You probably noticed on the rubric that I sent you for the first speech that those are things that I will remark on and things that I will evaluate in your speech delivery. So let's get into the methods of delivery. There's 4, and they're fairly simple and straightforward. So I have a reading that you should do, or you should complete this week. It's called Methods of Delivery on Moodle, but it will take you to a LibGuide that discusses these in more detail. But I just want to offer this visual video for you, visual recording, so that you can get that method of delivery as well. About methods of delivery. The first one is manuscript reading. This is the one that you see a lot of politicians do because they often have a teleprompter. If you watch the news, that's what they're doing because they have a teleprompter. And it is essentially you type the script up for your speech and then you read that script almost verbatim or verbatim. Examples of this might include Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, the inaugural speeches of all the presidents ever in our country. The idea behind the manuscript reading is essentially you've expressly prepared exactly what you want to say and how you want to say it. Some issues that you might deal with, though, with this type of delivery if you're preparing a speech is time and also ability to practice appropriately. So manuscript reading can often make people read very stilted because they're reading the words on the page. If you're not a strong reader, I don't really recommend this as an option. Even if you are a strong reader, the other thing that comes into play here is that you need to really prepare exactly what it is you're saying and how you want to say it. Even though you might read it grammatically correct, even though you might take the pauses as they come, you might not always be inflecting words that need to be inflected. You might not be expressing words that need to be expressed in the right way. So that leads me to the next one, the memorized speech. This is essentially similar to manuscript reading because you've memorized the speech itself and what you want to say, so you've probably already scripted it out. But it really requires the memorization of a lot of text. And if you're not good at memorizing things, I wouldn't recommend this one. But the difference here is that it does give you more time to prepare and practice the way that you'll deliver it. It kind of relies more on the delivery itself to be memorized, not just the words on the page. So memorized style can be useful, but I'm not sure how much time you're going to have this semester to really memorize all of your speeches. Some of you might be good at this, and it might be an appropriate form. The opposite of these first two is impromptu style speaking. This is essentially where you get a topic and you speak off the cuff. Some of you did this for your introduction speeches, and it shows, and that's one of the issues with this method of delivery. When you're dealing with impromptu speaking, the idea isn't to just speak off the cuff at random and hope that you make it to the end. It's to make sure that even though you are speaking off the cuff, that even though you don't have exactly what you want to say planned, you're still able to talk about something adequately, appropriately, and you're doing it in such a way that your audience can follow. And you probably hear my dog now as he's rolling around on the floor. I apologize for that. And then lastly, the method of delivery that most of you will probably use this semester is extemporaneous speaking or delivery. This is actually what I'm doing right now with this speech. I'm using notes, which are basically the slides here, and I'm taking those notes from the slide to remind me of certain points that I need to hit. So right now I'm on the extemporaneous speech delivery point. So I know more or less what I want to say, but I might not have practiced or written all this out, right? The other thing is I've talked about these methods of delivery before, so I have some basic sense of what I'm going to say anyway. I have prepared this in some form. Extemporaneous delivery is really useful because it allows you to use some notes, but you're not beholden to exactly what's on the paper. And you're also not just speaking off the cuff, which is nice too. So I would really recommend this one for the speeches that we're doing, given time constraints and the length of the speeches themselves. So those are the 4 methods of delivery. If you want to know more about them directly, you can read that handout that I have on Moodle. But it's really going to depend on what you're most comfortable with, what works best for you, and what you're going to be able to really pull off in the time that we have available. If you want to know more about these or just ways to improve these, you can ask me or let me know. But they're all going to take practice no matter what it is that you choose. A couple things here as you prepare some of the more formal speeches from the semester. Make sure that you are rehearsing your speeches. Your preparation and practice will show in the delivery of your speech. Make sure that you are recreating the setting here, which in this case, you maybe just have the camera in front of you. Whether you're recording or not is up to you. But you want to make sure that you are, hey, there he is. You want to make sure that you are preparing your speech and delivering it the way that you would for the class. So get the camera out, put it in front of you, even if it's not on. Practice without memorizing the speech. Hold on, buddy. Practice without memorizing the speech, and make sure that you're timing it as well. There will be strict time limits to the speeches that we deliver this semester. Some of them will be 5 to 7, the longest being, I think, 8 to 10. So they're going to vary in length. But for this first speech, I really only needed about 90 seconds of speech, and I got anywhere from 30 seconds to 17 minutes. So you need to be aware of that, especially as you practice. Figure out what to cut. Sometimes I get speeches that are only supposed to be 5 minutes, and they're like 15 minutes long. That's way too long, and I don't really have the time in my day to sit there and listen to a 15-minute speech that only needs 5 minutes to deliver. And that will affect your grade. So just make sure that you're doing this. But most importantly, make sure that you are watching yourself. I highly recommend recording your speeches and rewatching them. It's something that we will do for the Mosaic speech and the demonstration speech. It will be an assignment that you have to complete. But I recommend doing this for every speech that you deliver this semester. Personally, I can say that as a musician, this was something that helped me the most to get better in practice, was recording myself, figuring out areas that I needed to improve or areas where I wasn't as confident, and then picking out those areas and then just practicing those specific things over and over again until I nailed them. So watching yourself and critiquing yourself is probably the most important aspect of rehearsal. Okay, so I'm back. Unfortunately, I had to pause the video because my dog really needed to go outside and he couldn't quite get the door open on his own. It wasn't cracked enough for him, so had to cut it there and come back, which unfortunately I'm almost done this part of the video, so there's not really much left for me to go over, and then you'll cut over to another section to talk about grades. So just to finish up here and discuss some basic elements of your physical delivery and body language, make sure again that your appearance is appropriate. You should be in some form of business casual clothing, something that looks nice on screen. Again, no hats, no crazy jewelry. Make sure that your basic hygiene needs are met here. Make sure that you're maintaining good posture and eye contact with the camera as much as possible. You really shouldn't be wandering or looking around like this. And this takes practice. This isn't something, again, that you're born with. So for those of you that are dealing with glossophobia or other types of anxiety, this is something that you will get better at with time. But don't let just the speeches themselves be your way of practicing. Make sure that you are taking the time in rehearsal to go over these things. Make sure, again, you're rewatching your video to make yourself aware of the way that you're standing, the way that you look. Your body language says a lot about you, not just the words that are coming out of your mouth, but the way that you present yourself. And also psychologically, body language can help you be more confident. If you're slouching or closed off, this doesn't really exude confidence, but it also doesn't help your brain to feel confident either. So really, if you're standing up straight and you are making sure that you're upright, your shoulders are back, you can even try the sort of Superman pose sometimes before delivering this. Don't do it in a speech, but before a speech, you can kind of try this opening of your body language. This can help you feel more confident psychologically. Also, smiling, forcing yourself to smile, can help put you in a better mood. So these are techniques that you could do before recording to kind of help you prepare and become more confident when you go to deliver the speech as well. Make sure that you are using appropriate hand gestures. Some of you in the introduction speech kind of are doing some of these things. And my dog still cannot get out of this room. I'm not sure why. You need to make sure that the gestures are reinforcing. So you don't want to just throw a random hand out there, right? You might also notice that some speakers have a very particular hand gesture, and that's not always the best form of body language. President Obama used to kind of do this a lot. He's known for it, he's famous for it, but that doesn't make it effective, right? Trump kind of does this a lot with his hands. That's not really effective body language necessarily. I used to always kind of put things in a box, someone told me, and I stopped doing that because how many things do you really put in boxes, right? That doesn't make sense. But I just kept doing this out of, I guess, nervousness. So be aware of that. Make sure that if you are gesturing to something, it's to something. So this is my dog, right? Actually, my dog's over here, so I'm failing at gesturing myself. Also, make sure that you're taking pauses. Some of you in your introduction speech we're speaking so fast that you're trying to get through it and you didn't really take a pause. You were just saying that this is what I'm talking about. Okay, so I don't really suffer from glossophobia, but I think that I do kind of have some issues with glossophobia, but I don't really suffer from it. I just have certain aspects that I don't really like to do. And then if we're talking about things I don't like in speakers, I don't like when speakers talk really fast like this because I really can't really understand what they're saying. Slow down, right? It's not a race. You do need to be aware of the time, but if you're speaking so fast, it tells us, one, that you don't really want to be here, and two, you're just really, really scared or anxious, and you didn't practice enough. Make sure that you take the pauses. Make sure that you speak in an even-keeled manner. Make sure that you are speaking in a way that your audience can understand. Sometimes I struggle with this because I do speak very fast, especially when I'm in the classroom, because I have an hour and 15 minutes. I got to get everything I need in an hour and 15 minutes. And sometimes I'm like really trying to get to the next thing, but I got to get some other things out. So we're all guilty of it, right? I struggle with this myself. But you have to remember that you need to breathe, and your audience is listening. And if you're speaking too fast, if you're not taking appropriate pauses, they're going to get lost. So that's pretty much it for this part of the video. I have the rest of these slides up, but I don't really want to cover them. You can just kind of read them yourself. Just some things to keep in mind as you deliver the speeches for the semester. And I can come back to this if you need me to, but they're pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to cut over now to another part of the video that I recorded earlier about grades and expectations. So thank you for watching this part of the video. And I hope you enjoyed the cuteness of my dog, Severus. So I'm going to jump over here real quick to the rubric. And I want to cover some aspects about what I'm looking for specifically as I grade your speeches. So this rubric I more or less used with your introduction speech, but again, I was very lenient on this first one because I was just trying to test out if everybody had access to YouTube and could post a video competently. So some things to think about here. I'm looking at these different areas for speech composition and speech delivery. I'm looking at your introduction. I'm making sure you don't do things like, skip back over to the video. I'm making sure you don't do things like this. You start the video and go, hey, what's up? So I'm here to deliver my Mosaic speech. We know, yes, because it says Mosaic speech on it. Also, when we get to things like the demonstration speech, the classroom is not going to be your audience. So to say things like, hey guys, what's going on? I'm here to deliver my demonstration speech. That means you're delivering it to the class, but the demonstration speech is not for the class. The Mosaic speech, sure, you're telling us more about yourself, right? You're highlighting different aspects of who you are as a person. So it might be appropriate to address the class, hey everyone, how's it going? Having a really good time. In the speech class, you're probably not having a good time. It's school. But be authentic and address the audience. But don't start off, hey guys. Again, not everyone in the class is a guy. So be aware of who your audience is. And I would really recommend don't start with, hey guys, or hey everyone, or hello, how's it going? Speakers don't do this. Start with an engaging opener, and we'll talk more about this as the semester progresses. But I'm going to be looking at that. How do you introduce the speech? How have you organized the components? For this Mosaic speech, I'm going to look at how you organize your 5 things. Is it from least important to most important, from most important to least important, or is it just a random collection of things that you've gathered and accrued? So really just go through this rubric and look at the things I'm going to be looking at, and consider that as you develop your speeches. So I'm just going to blow through this real quick and discuss the basics of the grades that you'll get. Many of you may have this idea, and I want to put my face back on the screen. Many of you may have this idea that doing the work gets you an A. I have a lot of students that come into college and they think that. They think, I've worked really hard and I deserve an A on this because I think it's really good. And the example I always use is this. Hard work does not determine or is reflective of the content of that work. So let's say I have water running into my house and it's flooding my basement. And I ask you to dig me a ditch. I say, I need you to dig a ditch to divert the water from my home. You can work really, really hard at digging that ditch. But if it doesn't divert the water from my house, it's not a very good ditch, is it? You might have worked all day and all night. You might have brought in extra hands. You might have pulled overtime. You might have even broken your back digging the ditch. But that doesn't mean that it's an effective ditch. What makes it an effective ditch is if it does the job that it's supposed to and does it really well and I get my money's worth. If I'm paying you $500 and you've done, an adequate job, you got a ditch, but it's not very pretty. Okay, if you've dug the ditch, made it look very nice, it diverts water not just away from my home, but away from other things, and you've planned this out, it's not encroaching on anything else on my property, you've gone above and beyond to think about these things, then yeah, I've got my money's worth. So think about that metaphor as I describe these. So essentially, a C speech, or just a C grade in general, means that you have met the basic components of what I'm asking you for. You've met these. You've met the requirements to some extent at a basic level. It means it's competent. It means that you've done what I've asked you to do at a basic level. A C is not a bad grade. A lot of students think that a C is really an F, and it's not. A C is actually competency. It means that you've met the requirements of the speech. And I know I'm being redundant about that, but I can't stress that enough. Getting a C is a good thing. It means that you have done what I've asked you to do. Now, how does that compare to a B and a C? So a B goes beyond that. It's not just meeting all the requirements of the speech. It's interesting, it's engaging, you've developed a lot of your ideas, you have logically organized your speech to such a degree that really ropes me in. It goes beyond just the basics of having an opening, but it has an engaging opening. Something that I wouldn't have considered or really got me to think or really roped me in. Jump to an A then. An A is memorable. It means that really that you've gone above and beyond what I've asked you to do. And a lot of students get upset about this because they think, well, if you wanted me to do this, then why didn't you just ask me? Again, I'll show my face. Think of the grades this way. I'm evaluating aspects of our curriculum, right? And how well you meet those aspects. I don't need you necessarily all to be outstanding students and meet these outcomes. I want you to try, and some of you will definitely be outstanding and go above and beyond. Some of you need an A, so you really need to think about how to go above and beyond and just deliver more than a basic speech, right? An example I can give is this. For a demonstration speech that you'll do, I'll tell you at some point, don't show me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? If you want to do a demonstration speech and demonstrate something to an audience, and you show the audience how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, how many people do you think don't know how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? It's pretty self-explanatory. You have bread, peanut butter, and jelly, and you put them together. That's not very interesting, and it's not very memorable. It's competent. You've done a demonstration, and you've shown me how to do something, even though I pretty much know how to do it my own way, right? But I'm not just looking for you to meet the basic requirements here. Well, I am. Let me rephrase. I'm looking for you to meet the basic requirements, but if you want to get a higher grade than just that, you have to show me that you are putting in extra work, you're putting in extra effort, you're thinking outside the box here. And that's what these grades really mean. A C is competent. You've met the requirements. A B is interesting. It's more than just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Maybe it's a different way to use peanut butter and jelly than just in a sandwich, right? Different ways to use these two ingredients. In A speech, it really has an impact. it it adds something to the audience's knowledge base, right? It considers the fact that one, if an audience knows how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, they don't need you to demonstrate it. Um, it gives them something that they didn't already know. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, for the mosaic speeches, there's not much that you can really do with that, but just give me more than, hey, here's my favorite toy, here's my favorite dog, here's my favorite friend, right? When you deliver the mosaic speech, please make sure that you are providing reasons that these things are important to you, providing a discussion and support for why you're showing us this thing. Don't just show me a picture of your dog and say, I love my dog, he's great. Why? And what does that have to do with you, right? If you literally go, this is my dog, I love him, he's my favorite thing in all the world. This is a video game I like, it's my favorite video game, I play it all the time. If you do that, that's competent, maybe. You're delivering a speech, and you're showing me things about you, but is it memorable? Is it interesting? Probably not. I want to know why the dog is so important to you. I want to know why the video game is so important to you. So just think about that as you deliver the mosaic speech, or prepare the mosaic speech. So I think that's pretty much it. Sorry for being a little long-winded about the grades, but I want to be clear that, don't be upset about a C. And also, I don't deduct points unless the speech is late. Don't think of it as, if you get a C, for instance, that you've lost 25 points. You've gained 75 points. You all start with nothing. Because if you don't turn in a speech, it's a 0. So you're starting at 0. And everything that you do adds points to your score. So at the end of the day, if you get a 75, that's a lot of points. You've gotten 75 out of 100 points. You didn't lose 25 points. You've gained 75 points. If you get a 95, you've gained 95 points. So don't think of it like, why did you deduct 5 points from this? I was so close to 100. No, yeah, you were so close to 100. That's how good it was. You got 95 points. It was great. So just try to rework the way that you think about grades. The thing I always say too, the guy that finishes last in med school still gets called doctor at the end of the day. So again, C's are not always the worst thing in the world. And quite frankly, 20 years from now, you're not going to remember what you got in this class. Probably won't even remember that you took the class or that I was your instructor. So I'm still trying to remember the name of my philosophy professor because I'm looking for an article that he read. Can't remember it. It was so long ago, cannot remember his name, and I don't even know what I got in the class. So just think about that. Don't stress too much on the grades. Think more about the comments that I'm leaving you, and reach out if you have questions about that. If you need an A in the class, I know some of you are in like the dental hygiene program, you really need an A. We can work on that, but that's going to rely on you, not me, to get that A. So just something to think about. All right, that's it for me. So I will see you in the discussion boards and in these videos in the future. So good luck to you, and please reach out to me if you have any questions about the speech.